Picture Book English.
High above the city, on a tall column, stood the statue of the Happy Prince. He was gilded all over with thin leaves of fine gold. For eyes he had two bright sapphires, and a large red ruby glowed on his sword hilt.
I am glad there is someone in the world who is quite happy,
Muttered a disappointed man as he gazed at the wonderful statue. One night, there flew over the city a little swallow. His friends had gone away to Egypt 6 weeks before. But he had stayed behind, for he loved to see the reed moving in wind by the riverside. So he always stayed in that place.
It is a ridiculous attachment.
Twittered the other swallows. When the autumn came, other swallows flew away. After they had gone, he felt lonely and began to tire, so he decided to fly to Egypt. All day long he flew, and at night time he arrived at the city.
Where shall I put up?
He said.
I hope the town has made preparations.
Then he saw the statue on the tall column.
I will put up there. It is a fine position, with plenty of fresh air.
So he alighted just between the feet of the Happy Prince.
I have a golden bedroom.
He said softly to himself as he looked round, and he prepared to go to sleep. But just as he was putting his head under his wing, a large drop of water fell on him.
What a curious thing. There is not a single cloud in the sky. The stars are quite clear and bright, and yet it is raining. The climate in the north of Europe is really dreadful.
Then another drop fell.
What is the use of a statue if it cannot keep the rain off? I must look for a good chimney pot.
And he determined to fly away. But before he had opened his wings, a third drop fell, and he looked up and saw. The eyes of the Happy Prince were filled with tears, and tears were running down his golden cheeks. His face was so beautiful in the moonlight that the little swallow was filled with pity.
Who are you?
I am the Happy Prince.
Why are you weeping then? You have quite drenched me.
When I was alive and had a human heart, I did not know what tears were, for I lived in the palace of Sanssouci, where sorrow is not allowed to enter. In the daytime I played with my companions in the garden, and in the evening I led the dance in the great hall. Round the garden ran a very lofty wall, but I never cared to ask what lay beyond it. Everything about me was so beautiful. My courtiers called me the Happy Prince, and happy indeed I was. If pleasure be happiness, so I lived, and so I died. And now that I am dead, they have set me up here so high that I can see all the ugliness and all the misery of my city. And though my heart is made of lead, yet I cannot choose but weep.
Is he not solid gold?
Said the swallow to himself.
Far away in a little street, there is a Poe house. One of the windows is open, and through it I can see a woman seated at a table. Her face is thin and worn, and she has coarse, red hands, all pricked by the needle, for she is a sempstress. She is embroidering passion flowers on a satin gown for the loveliest of the queen's maids of honor to wear at the next court ball. In a bed in the corner of the room, her little boy is lying ill. He has a fever and is asking for oranges. His mother has nothing to give him but river water, so he is crying, "Swallow, swallow, little swallow, will you not bring her the ruby out of my sword hilt? My feet are fastened to this pedestal, and I cannot move."
I am waited for in Egypt. My friends are flying up and down the Nile.
"Swallow, swallow, little swallow, will you not stay with me for one night and be my messenger? The boy is so thirsty and the mother so sad."
I don't think I like boys. Last summer, when I was staying on the river, there were 2 rude boys who were always throwing stones at me.
But the Happy Prince looked so sad that the little swallow was sorry.
It is very cold here, but I will stay with you for one night and be your messenger.
He passed by the cathedral tower, where the white marble angels were sculptured. He passed over the river, and saw the lanterns hanging to the masts of the ships. At last he came to the poorhouse and looked in. The boy was tossing feverishly on his bed, and the mother had fallen asleep. She was so tired. In he hopped and laid the great ruby on the table beside the woman's thimble. Then he flew gently round the bed, fanning the boy's forehead with his wings. Then the swallow flew back to the happy prince and told him what he had done.
It is curious, but I feel quite warm now, although it is so cold.
Thank you, little swallow. That is because you have done a good action.
When day broke, he flew down to the river and had a bath.
What a remarkable phenomenon. The swallow in winter.
Said the professor of ornithology as he was passing over the bridge.
Tonight I go to Egypt.
Swallow, swallow, little swallow, will you not stay with me one night longer?
I am waited for in Egypt.
Swallow, swallow, little swallow, far away across the city, I see a young man in a garret. He is leaning over a desk covered with papers. He is trying to finish a play for the director of the theater, but he is too cold to write any more. There is no fire in the grate, and hunger has made him faint. Swallow, swallow, little swallow, will you not stay with me one night longer?
I will wait with you one night longer. Shall I take him another ruby?
Alas, I have no ruby now. My eyes are all that I have left. They are made of rare sapphires, which were brought out of India 1,000 years ago. Pluck out one of them and take it to him. He will sell it to the jeweler and buy food and firewood and finish his play.
So the swallow plucked out the prince's eye and flew away to the student's garret. It was easy enough to get in, as there was a hole in the roof. When he looked up, he found the beautiful sapphire lying on the withered violets. I am beginning to be appreciated, he cried. This is from some great admirer. Now I can finish my play, and he looked quite happy.
I am come to bid you goodbye. It is winter. The chill snow will soon be here, dear prince. I must leave you, but I will never forget you.
In the square below, there stands a little match girl. She has let her matches fall in the gutter, and they are all spoiled. Her father will beat her if she does not bring home some money, and she is crying. Pluck out my other eye and give it to her, and her father will not beat her. I am covered with fine gold.
So he plucked out the prince's other eye and darted down with it. He swooped past the match girl and slipped the jewel into the palm of her hand. What a lovely bit of glass, cried the little girl, and she ran home, laughing. Then the swallow came back to the prince.
You are blind now, so I will stay with you always,
said the swallow, and he slept at the prince's feet. The next day, the prince said,
Dear little swallow, fly over my city, little swallow, and tell me what you see there.
So the swallow flew over the great city and saw the rich making merry in their beautiful houses, while the beggars were sitting at the gates. He flew into dark lanes and saw the white faces of starving children looking out listlessly at the black streets. Under the archway of a bridge, two little boys were lying in one another's arms to try and keep themselves warm. How hungry we are, they said. You must not lie here, shouted the watchman. Then he flew back and told the prince what he had seen.
You must take it off, leaf by leaf, and give it to my Poe. The living always think that gold can make them happy.
Leaf after leaf of the fine gold he brought to the poor, and the children's faces grew rosier, and they laughed and played games in the street. We have bread now, they cried. The poor little swallow grew colder and colder, but he would not leave the prince. He loved him too well. He picked up crumbs outside the baker's door when the baker was not looking and tried to keep himself warm by flapping his wings. But at last he knew that he was going to die. He had just strength to fly up to the prince's shoulder once more.
Goodbye, dear prince.
I'm glad that you are going to Egypt at last, little swallow.
It is not to Egypt that I am going. I am going to the house of death.
And he kissed the happy prince and fell down dead at his feet. At that moment, a curious crack sounded inside the statue, as if something had broken. The fact is that the leaden heart had snapped right in two. It certainly was a dreadfully hard frost. Early the next morning, the mayor was walking in the square below in company with the town councillors.
Dear me, how shabby the happy prince looks. The ruby has fallen out of his sword. His eyes are gone, and he is golden no longer. He is little better than a beggar. And here is actually a dead bird at his feet.
So they pulled down the statue of the happy prince, and they melted it in furnace, but the broken heart is not melting. So they threw it on a dust heap where the dead swallow was also lying. At the same time, God sent his angel to bring him the two most precious things in the city. And the angel brought him the leaden heart and the dead bard. You have rightly chosen, said God, for in my garden of paradise this little bard shall sing forevermore, and in my city of gold the happy prince shall praise me.